Spoiler warning for basically any Ultraman media since 2009. I mean it, this theory is going to cover a lot of ground. You've been warned. Ultraman Belial, once a powerful warrior of light who chose to embrace his own selfish ambition at the cost of his race. Jugglus Juggler, the Unchosen One, Ultraman Orb's former comrade turned rival. Once a villain but now redeemed, yet he still seeks to prove the folly of the justice which rejected him. What would happen if these two powerful rejects of Ultra Justice joined forces? Could this be the threat that finally unwinds the destiny of the Land of Light? Keep watching to find out. Okay, so last we met both characters. Jugglus Juggler had just failed in an attempt to steal a powerful robot known as Ultroid Zero from Alien Cerebro because he needed it to, in his words, quote, show those who think their justice is absolute just how fragile their assumptions are, unquote. What exactly this means is left up to interpretation, but if he needs a powerful robot, he probably intends to take on someone just as powerful. As for Ultraman Belial, if you watched Jeed, you probably remember distinctly that he got blown to bits by his own son/clone, Ultraman Jeed. But thanks to timeline tampering, this version of Ultraman Belial from before he met Rayblood, the alien which gave him his iconic appearance, weapon, and the ability to control an army of monsters, has been brought into the future by a time-traveling alien known as Absolute Tartarus, in order to help the Absolutians fight a war against the Ultramen, to claim the Land of Light for their own, because their own planet, which has his own version of the Plasma Spark, is dying, and the only other planet they can live on is the Land of Light. Oh, also I should make it clear that even though Absolute Tartarus took Belial into the future, the timeline somehow didn't change. Belial is still a historic figure who merged with Rayblood and created Jeed. It's just that somehow there's another Belial who comes from the past. Confusing? Yeah, I don't really get it either. Eventually, this version of Belial got bored of fighting for other people and decided to wander the universe, the powerful Giga Battlenizer and Absolutian granted power in hand. Caught up now? Good. Okay, so you may be asking, why would Belial merge with Juggler in the first place? Fair question. Juggler has almost always wanted to be an Ultraman. Being denied that right is a big part of why he became a villain in the first place. But Belial is known for being arrogant, and also for having never taken a proper host, other than Aria, but that was more of a possessed disguise rather than a host proper. Even Fukurei, his most loyal servant, never had the honor of being Belial's human host. First off, this isn't the same version of Belial that we are used to. He was taken out of the timeline before meeting Rayblood, sacking the Land of Light, and whooping nearly every Ultraman in existence, being locked up for 20,000 years, breaking free, and whooping the Ultras again, starting an empire, and defying death multiple times. So this version of Belial has less reason to be cocky, especially since his last experience, other than fighting side by side with the Absolutians, was being beaten by Ken in training, nearly burnt to a crisp by the Plasma Spark, and exiled. Also, I have reason to believe this version of Belial is actually in danger, and may just need Juggler's help after all. Belial, at least the one from the original timeline, is the worst of the worst. It's an established fact that he destroys planets for fun, and he nearly destroyed the universe as a whole because he has, if I can't have it, nobody can mentality. Therefore, when people inevitably learn that Belial is back, something I don't think Belial would try to keep a secret, I think they would want to deal with this threat before he reformed his infamous empire and became an even bigger threat. There are several large empires at play here, and I think that the one which would play the largest part is the Paydan Empire, particularly the faction from the future. For those unaware, the Paydan's home planet is destroyed in the future by Ionics, i.e. one of those powerful individuals with the DNA of Rayblood, who can control monsters. So the Paydan send a bunch of soldiers with giant killer robots to kill all Rayonics, which Belial technically is. Well, at least the Belial everyone in the universe is familiar with. Technically, this Belial, taken out of the timeline at an early point, isn't a Rayonics, but I don't think they would know that, especially since he is still toting around the Rayonics' most powerful and iconic weapon of mass destruction, the Giga Battlenizer, capable of controlling 100 monsters at once. At least when you're a Rayonics. Remember that for later. So, inevitably, Belial finds himself in a huge battle against hundreds of King Joe robots, space dinosaur Zetons, Pandons from the empire of the alien ghosts, and even the equally infamous Yapul aliens with their deadly, specially engineered terror beasts, Choju. Belial has been infused with Absolutian power, granted to him when he was still fighting on behalf of the Absolutians, but alone, he would find himself outmatched here. Thus enters Juggler. Juggler has the one thing that can help Belial win this battle, a Dark Z Riser. Before anyone comments that he's broken his fight with Celebro so he couldn't have it here, he probably eventually had it fixed just like when Jeed broke his Jeed Riser. Damage isn't always permanent. Juggler appears in the form of Zapandon, a powerful combination of several kaiju made using the Dark Z Riser. Helping Belial defend off a horde of some of the strongest kaiju to ever exist, he offers him a choice. Bond with me and use my Z Riser to destroy this army, or I leave you to die. Belial doesn't really have a choice, and his color timer is running low, so he accepts. Together, they turn into an Ultraman Belial enhanced Zapandon. Call him Bell Zapandon if you like. Remember, this is the power of an Absolutian enhanced Belial, Maga Orochi, who put Orb out of commission before he unlocked the Belial card, Pandon, who put 7 out of commission, and Zeton, who literally killed Ultraman in their first encounter. The fusion would be something like Belial's Chimera Barros, a fusion form the other version of Belial took on. Once the gathered armada starts to take serious damage, I think the whole chain of command between these united forces would be thrown off, and mass confusion would set in. So the army retreats to regather, reassess, and formulate another plan of attack. Juggler and Belial will take this advantage to retreat and go into hiding while they get acquainted and figure out what to do next. Now, kaiju medals are cool and all, but the Ultra medals are beyond a shadow of a doubt stronger than the kaiju medals. Now, considering the difficulty certain Ultra protagonists have had in using dark artifacts of power, usually pertaining to Belial himself, it raises questions of whether Juggler and Belial, as dark-aligned characters, would be able to use light-aligned artifacts or not. But these Ultra protagonists didn't need to have evil intentions to use the power of evil Ultraman Belial. Usually some quantity of negative emotion was enough. It has been implied by Belial Rock, a sword made out of Belial's DNA, that there's a small quantity of goodness or something similar in this version of Belial, and Juggler himself is no longer an actual villain but an anti-hero. So if Guy becoming angry was enough darkness to access Belial's card, the altruism implied to be in both Juggler and Belial would likely be enough to grant them the ability to use Ultra medals. I also think Juggler would find it funny turning Ultraman Orb's whole "I embrace the darkness to become light" thing on its head, instead embracing the light to become darkness. Now, the person with the largest collection of Ultraman medals right now has got to be Ultraman Z, who is currently bonded with Haruki, a member of the crew Juggler used to be captain of back when he was pretending to be Shota Hebakura of Storage. This knowledge in hand, Juggler and Belial agreed to head to Z's Earth to retrieve the medals. Juggler/Belial descended in the form of regular Zapandon, without engaging Belial's powers. Juggler wanted his fusions with Belial to be a surprise when Z decided to show up. The two would start off boxing against Windom and King Joe Storage Custom, two mechs of storages, using Zapandon's ability to teleport and shoot multiple lasers to weave through the two robots and attack their exposed flanks. He wasn't in it to just have fun this time, he was in it to win. Zapandon managed to disable Windom and rip off King Joe's cannon arm, severely crippling it. As he hoped, in their most desperate hour, Ultraman Z appeared. The bafflement and betrayal in Z's voice as he, or more likely the human within him, asked Juggler why he was doing this, was evident. Haruki knew by now that Zapandon was a monstrous transformation of Alien Spiky, as he calls Juggler, who he later learned was actually his captain, now former captain. It actually hurt Juggler a little bit to do this, but he wouldn't hurt Z or Haruki that badly. Monster and Ultra engaged in a short battle, but Juggler quickly decided to transition into Ultraman Belial, in his pure Ultra form, not his monster form. Zet was astonished. He had fought Ultraman Belial during the conflict with the Absolutians, but he had no idea that he was associated with Juggler. "I told you," Juggler quipped. "Don't just rely on your eyes." Zet was quickly overpowered, so he decided to transition into his strongest form, Deathsium Rise Claw, the superpowered version of his Delta Rise Claw form. Juggler smirked and tried something, reaching deep into his well of unnatural power and pulling it forth. The result was promising. a fusion of Jugglus Juggler's armored Majin, i.e. a type of Japanese spirit associated with Jiaki, which is the power of negative emotions such as hatred, essentially a demon, form, and Ultraman Belial's early style Ultra form. Even better, he had access to a giant version of his Jashin blade, the perfect counter to Zet's Belial Rock sword. Even in his strongest form, Zet couldn't compete with a Belial enhanced both by Absolutian power and Juggler's power, and soon he found himself pinned under Belial's heel. Belial raised the Jashin blade to deal the killing blow, but Juggler wouldn't let him go that far. As the two struggled internally, Zet's color timer ran out, and he dissolved into a mist of light. Juggler returned to human form, stooping over Haruki and ripping the pack of medals from him, much as he had done to his rival, Kurenai Guy, years before. This time, however, he was going to use them for himself, with the help of his very own Ultra. "Captain, why?" Haruki croaked. "Because I still have a score to settle," Juggler replied smugly, "and your medals are going to help me do it." He did leave him with 3 medals, though, the one to transform into Beta Smash, so that Haruki wouldn't be left completely powerless. He took all the rest. From here, I think that Juggler would want to practice with his new medals. We see him practicing his Jashin strike before his big fight with Ultraman Orb in the series of the same name, so I definitely think he would want to practice with a power he doesn't even completely know how to control yet. So they would probably go from backwater planet to backwater planet, battling random kaiju for practice and, ironically, earning something of a heroic reputation, which actually felt a little good for both. For Belial, it was nice to finally be praised for his power, and for Juggler, he felt a little bit of nostalgia for his time with Guy, traveling with a companion, fighting for the weak against impossible foes. But now that they had the medals, and now that they knew how to use them, what would they use them for? Belial would want to invade the Land of Light. That much is clear, as is exactly what he did in the other timeline when he merged with Rayblood. But would Juggler go along with it? It's my belief that would be exactly what he intends to do. You see, what does Juggler want in the grand scheme of things? To prove that he's right. Well, right about what? During his monologue, where he sort of explains why he needs Ultroid Zero to Haruki, he starts talking about how he cut down the Tree of Life on planet Cannon to end the war with Dr. Psyche, who wanted the tree in order to strip free will from the universe, and how the people of planet Cannon ostracized him for it and labeled him a villain, because the Tree of Life was viewed as sacred to the people of Cannon. If we break it down, it seems to me his main motivation is to prove that sometimes, in order to end conflict and achieve peace, you need to do things that others would consider to be corrupt or unjust. Or as he puts it, show those who think their justice is absolute just how fragile their assumptions are, quote unquote. Who has the strongest moral center in this universe? It has to be the Ultras by a long shot. So what is the conflict that Juggler intends to end at the cost of justice? Well, it just so happens that the Ultras have found themselves in conflict with the Absolutians over the Land of Light. As I explained earlier, the Absolutians need that planet because theirs is dying, and they also need a source of light energy to live off of, just like the Ultras. So really the Land of Light is their only option, and they intend to take it by force. A bloody war over a vital resource, just like the war for the Tree of Life. I think that Juggler intends to fight in this war, but not for the Ultras or the Absolutians. He's either going to conquer both races, become a tyrant, and make them coexist by force, meeting the very definition of the peace through injustice that I think Juggler is going for, or he's going to become a threat that forces them to work together. Win or lose, he will achieve his goal in the end. But if he was going to attack the Land of Light, he needed to be as prepared as possible, and there was one more thing he and Belial needed to do. See, they had one of the most powerful weapons in the universe at their disposal, the Giga Battlenizer, but no way to use it for its main purpose of summoning an army of kaiju. For that, they needed the DNA of Rayonics. The original Belial had access to this through merging with alien Rayblood, something this version of Belial has not done yet, so they decided to seek him out. They searched for some time, retracing the steps of the original Belial across worlds, galaxies, and even universes. But eventually, Rayblood would find them. He had actually been watching them for quite some time, but decided not to interfere. Yet. He was disappointed in the previous Belial, who had died multiple times and accomplished nothing. ultimately orchestrating his own demise by creating the one being powerful enough to kill him. For good. He knew this Belial was not the same one. Not quite, but he still chose to watch and see if he looked any more promising than his original counterpart. He was also very intrigued by Juggler, who somehow managed to compete with Ultrakind even before he gained the power to transform into Ultraman himself. The time had come, he decided, for Belial and Juggler to face a test, so he appeared before them. He told them how he had watched them and was intrigued by their potential, but he needed to know they were worthy before they could have his power. "Give me the Giga Battlenizer," he said. Juggler and Belial were apprehensive, but without Rayblood it wasn't that useful anyway, so they acquiesced. Still managing to grasp it in his incorporeal, outstretched hand, he held it aloft and called forth the 100 monsters contained within. Suddenly, Juggler and Belial were confronted with 100 kaiju, but this wasn't new to them. They had experienced the same thing when they fought off the allied forces of the Penan, Zeton, Ghosts, and Yaapul aliens. Now they were even more experienced and had access to ultrametals. They cut down monster after monster until none were left standing. And finally, Rayblood was impressed. He agreed to merge with them. And now we have a being who has the power of an Ultra, an Absolutian because of the Absolutians powering up Belial so he could help them fight their war, a Majin/demon, Juggler, Rayblood, and the Ultra Metals. Through this union of Belial, Juggler, and Rayblood, the Triumvirate of Darkness was formed. Belial wanted to attack the Land of Light immediately, but Juggler convinced Belial to attack the Kingdom, i.e. the Absolutians' domain, first, to which Belial begrudgingly agreed. After all, if Belial had a monster army and the Absolutians, the Land of Light would be destined to fall. It would be the biggest invasion of the Land of Light ever, far outshining even the attempts of Rayblood and Impera. Now, the Absolutians are some of the most powerful beings to ever exist, especially Absolute Tartarus, who easily outclasses both the original Belial and Absolutian-powered Belial. But Belial and Juggler have been collecting power-ups like Thanos collecting Infinity Stones. Oh, which reminds me to tell you that if you are liking this video, you should check out my What If Ultraman Was in the MCU playlist. So we're looking at Belial's Rayonics form, times his Absolutian form, times Juggler with metals. Since Juggler is also in control of Belial's body, he also has the skill of someone who has been fighting Ultramen and Kaiju nearly all his life without the advantage of actually having Ultra power, meaning that he's just that much more of a menace when he actually gains the raw power to back his skill with the blade. Just imagine in an average day in a city made of gold, you're an Absolutian, and you're probably doing drills or something while you prepare to fight the Ultras, when suddenly you see this guy with an army of 100 monsters appear out of nowhere and just start destroying everything. Because that's what's going on in the kingdom right now. Absolute Tartarus and Diavolo just got home after being sucked into a wormhole, and along with Absolute Titan, they confront the Betrayer, who first betrayed the Ultras and is now betraying them. But he overwhelms them with his raw power. They have no choice but to submit. The time of their so-called Lord's awakening is not yet, so right now they are at the mercy of Belial. Now leading an army of shiny Ultramen, Absolutians, the time has finally come for Belial to siege the Land of Light. Ultraman Ken, better known as the Father of Ultra, was looking out on a calm horizon when Hell's legions itself seemed to burst forth, led by a familiar face, Belial. Ken had heard that Belial had somehow returned, but it was worse. From the demonic look of his orange eyes and the sinister grin which carved itself into his face, he had merged with Rayblood again. Thus the battle begun. Honestly, I think that if it weren't for one thing, Belial/Juggler would easily win this fight. But let's talk about that one thing. Ultraman Reboot. Reboot had already tried to reason with Absolute Titan before, and even fought alongside him when Ultraman Nexus seemed to go berserk. I think that Reboot would try to reason with Absolute Titan again and try to get him to rebel against Belial. And considering the Absolutians don't even like Belial, I think Titan would be receptive to this. Relaying Reboot's offer of an alliance to Tartarus, he speaks to the Father of Ultra, leader of the Ultra race. and Absolute Tartarus and Ultraman Ken agree to face Belial together. Belial, betrayed, must now face the Ultras and the Absolutians together. The good news is that other than the three main Absolutians, that is Tartarus, Diavolo, and Titan, the Absolutians are mostly kaiju fodder. The bad news is that the Ultra Garrison is not the same one the original Belial bullied when he was released from his prison in Mega Monster Battle Ultra Galaxy Legends the movie. They now have the help of the new generation Ultramen. These Ultramen are not only stronger than their Showa and Heisei era counterparts on average, but have access to a variety of forms suited to different combat styles. And they've had years to master each single form, whereas Belial has had like a month. Worse, they have Jeed, who fought the original Belial in his most powerful form, Belial Atrocious. Now, Jeed has an even more powerful form than the one with which he killed Belial, Ultraman Jeed Ultimate Final. What's worse, he actually has help this time, including from Tartarus, who arguably rivals Ultraman King in power. Now, I think that Belial times Juggler times Rayblood with the power of the Absolutians and the fusion metals of such powerful Ultramen as Zero, Nexus, Tiga, etc. is much more powerful than Belial Atrocious was, but Belial is well outmatched this time. But Belial has one more trick up his sleeve. If he can steal the Plasma Spark, the Ultras, and maybe even the Absolutians, would all freeze to death, and he could escape to rule another day. He spots the Plasma Spark Tower and begins to fly towards it. The Ultras see what he is doing, but they don't have time to catch up and stop him. This is the end, their apocalypse. But then, Belial just freezes in midair, struggling with himself. "I won't let you do this," Juggler says to Belial. "This isn't the justice I want." Juggler may have been upset that he was condemned for cutting down the Tree of Life to stop a war, but I think he's learned his lesson since then. At least partially. That bonsai tree he was taking care of in Ultraman Z, it was actually the sapling with a new Tree of Life. Juggler may still be salty about what happened and how he was treated. He may still criticize their sense of justice, but he isn't about to let Belial commit genocide and destroy the one thing both races are counting on, that is the Plasma Spark. Also, this was one of the win-win situations which Juggler had anticipated in his head. The Ultras and the Absolutians have learned to work together. Negotiations have been opened, and the war is practically over. From Juggler's point of view, sooner or later they will have to admit he was right, and that their sense of justice was flawed. In his mind, he's already won. "Grr, I don't need you," Belial growls. He unmerges himself from Juggler, but by then it's too late. First off, the Ultra Metals and Juggler's Majin power stayed with Juggler, so Belial is left with significantly less power. Second off, the seconds which Juggler was fighting with Belial was enough for the Ultramen to catch up with him. Belial tries to fight them off, but they are too strong. They drag him back to the same prison from which the other Belial escaped many years ago. Jeed would visit his father, Belial, regularly in prison, talking with him about all kinds of things, trying to get to know his father better and treating him like a dad rather than some scary supervillain monster. Not saying he's not. Belial also gets to vent about how he was underappreciated in his time, passed up for a promotion in favor of Ken, passed up by Ultra Woman Marie, again for Ken, and how his resentment led him to seek out more power from the Plasma Spark. In a way, having someone to talk to rather than just stewing in the dark alone is therapeutic. Furthermore, as he got to know Jeed as a person with friends who likes ramen and has an unusual obsession with a tokusatsu hero called Dawnshine, he actually starts to think of Jeed as a person rather than a clone of a different Belial. Eventually, he even starts to see him as his own son. I see Belial's redemption arc as being very similar to Ultraman Zero in Mega Monster Battle Ultra Galaxy Legends the movie. He too tried to steal the power of the Plasma Spark, and as punishment was exiled to some backwater planet where he had to fight Ultraman Leo for 20,000 years or so. As for Juggler, I actually think he would be commended for stopping Belial from destroying the planet. He would be pardoned for trying to take over the Land of Light and other various crimes, such as, releasing the King Devil Beast Magatano Orochi. They may even award him with the Star Marks, basically Ultra Medals of Honor. But maybe that one's a stretch, I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. So what did you think of this what if story? Do you think it makes sense, or am I just crazy? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you liked this video, please click that like button. Give me your valuable input and suggestions in the comments section below. And subscribe for more Ultraman and Godzilla content. Until then, this has been JPZilla.